Chapter 4. The descent didn't look like a descent at first. It looked like a recovery, or perhaps a tactical retreat into a fortified position. After Sarah liquidated our life and the landlord gave me 24 hours to vacate the house on Oko, I didn't go straight to the gutter. I had too much pride for that, or perhaps just enough denial to fuel one last, desperate attempt at the expatriate dream. I refused to be the cautionary tale. I refused to be the guy weeping into a Be Ahoy glass while his visa expired. I was David Williams. I was educated. I was a head brewer, formerly. I was a man of substance. I packed my 2 suitcases, the sum total of my existence, and called a taxi. Not a motorbike, a car. An air-conditioned capsule to transport me from the scene of the crime to the scene of the redemption. Times City, I told the driver. He looked at me in the rearview mirror. Times City? Which tower? Any, just Times City, I said. Totally unaware if there even was anything to rent, or if I could use my bank card overdraft. A total gamble. Times City is the antithesis of the chaotic organic mess of the old quarter. It is a sprawling complex of white residential towers built by Vingroup, the conglomerate that owns everything from hospitals to grocery stores to the very land beneath your feet. It is a city within a city, a sanitized, master-planned utopia of concrete and glass located in the Hai Ba Trung district. But the heart of it is subterranean. A massive underground mega-mall and aquarium that stretches for kilometers beneath the earth. It is a bunker for the wealthy, a place where the weather never changes. The air always smells of ozone and floor wax, and the smog of Hanoi is filtered out by industrial scrubbers until it is just a memory. It was the perfect place to hide. I rented a studio apartment on the 18th floor of Tower T4. It was sterile, beige, and expensive. It cost me the last of my emergency cash and fully trashed my credit back home. The apartment had white tile floors, white walls, and a view of another white tower. It was silent, hermetically sealed. I stood in the center of the room. It felt like a hospital room or a very nice prison cell. "Okay," I said to the empty room. Reset. I showered. I shaved the beard off, exposing the pale skin underneath, though I kept the scar on my forehead covered with a polite, flesh-colored bandage. I put on my only suit, the charcoal one I'd worn to weddings in Portland. It hung a little loose on me now. I had lost weight in the heat of the brewery. Then, I took the elevator down. Down past the lobby. Down into the earth. VEUC, the Vietnam European Union Center, was located next to the artificial waterfall on the B1 level of the mega mall. It was the premier language center in Hanoi. It wasn't a backpackers teaching ABCs operation. It was an institution. The glass walls were spotless. The receptionists wore uniforms that looked like flight attendant gear, silk scarves, tailored blazers, frozen smiles. The parents dropping off their children didn't arrive on Honda Waves. They stepped out of black Mercedes, Maybachs, and Bentleys, checking Rolexes and adjusting suits that cost more than my annual salary. I walked in. I was sweating, not from heat. It was a frigid 18 degrees Celsius down here, but from the withdrawal that was beginning to tickle the edges of my nervous system. My hands were vibrating at a low frequency. "I'm David Williams," I told the receptionist. "I have an appointment with Ms. Halloway." Ms. Halloway was the director. She was a sharp, terrifying British woman in her 50s with a bob cut that looked like it could slice bread and eyes that had seen every lie a transient expat could tell. She sat behind a glass desk, reading my resume. "Chemistry degree," she noted, her accent clipped. "Production management, head brewer at Red River Craft Beer Company, and a 120-hour online TEFL certification." She looked up over her spectacles. "Why do you want to teach English, Mr. Williams? It seems below your pay grade." I leaned forward. I clasped my shaking hands together on my lap to steady them. "I'm looking for stability," I said. My voice was deep, resonant. The acoustics of the glass office were excellent. "Production is chaotic. It's messy. I want to apply my analytical skills to education. I know how to explain complex systems. Brewing is just chemistry. Language is just syntax." I didn't tell her the production facility was a failing sweatshop run by a sexual predator. I didn't tell her my wife had just left me for a loan shark's nephew, and I was currently vibrating with the need for a drink. "We need a senior teacher," Ms. Holloway said, closing the folder. "Someone with gravitas. Someone the parents can trust. They pay a premium for VEUC because we don't hire gap year students. We hire professionals." She looked at my suit. She looked at my height. She saw a serious American man. "I can be serious," I said. "I can be very serious." Thoughts of the impending expiring work permit drifted in. "Compose yourself, man." She studied me for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Trial period is 1 month. Salary is $5,000 USD net, plus housing allowance, plus performance bonus. $3,000. It was a fortune. It was more than I had made at the brewery in 4 months. "Welcome to VEUC," she said, extending a hand. I shook it. My palm was dry. I walked out of the office. I was employed. I was solvent. I was safe. I walked past the luxury boutiques, Versace, Gucci, VinFast. I walked past the sushi restaurants with conveyor belts of raw fish. I walked into the Vinmart supermarket at the end of the concourse. I didn't buy groceries. I didn't buy bread or milk. I bought a 1.5-liter bottle of Aquafina water and a 750 milliliter bottle of Smirnoff vodka. I went into the mall bathroom, a space of marble and gold fixtures that smelled of lavender. I went into a stall. I poured half the water down the toilet. I filled the bottle with the vodka. I shook it. It looked like water. It moved like water. I took a long drink. The plastic crinkled. The burn was clean, medical, silencing. It hit my stomach and radiated outward, stilling the tremors in my hands, quieting the screaming voice in my head that was replaying the image of Sarah touching Duyan's face. I took another drink. "Senior teacher," I whispered to the bottle. I capped it. I stepped back out into the air-conditioned void. I was functional. I was fine. The routine solidified over the next 2 months. It was a masterpiece of calibration. I became the senior teacher of Hanoi. I taught the advanced IELTS preparation classes, the high-stakes exams that determined whether these wealthy children would go to Oxford or Harvard or stay in Vietnam. The parents treated me like a guru. They smiled and wanted to talk to when they saw me, partly in respect for my position, partly in fascination and curiosity of this black man teaching their pride and joy. They brought me gifts, boxes of Mooncake's expensive teas. They didn't know I was operating on a blood alcohol content that would render a normal man comatose. My day was a mathematical equation of intake and output. 7 o'clock a.m. Wake up in the White Room. The silence of Times City was absolute. No roosters, no construction noise, just the hum of the fridge. 7:15 a.m. 2 shots of vodka in the morning coffee. This was the stabilizer. It stopped the morning shake. It allowed me to tie my tie and shave without cutting my throat. 8 o'clock a.m. Arrive at VEUC. The water bottle goes on the desk. Aquafina. Pure. Clean. 10 o'clock a.m. Break time. A long swig from the bottle. A breath mint. 12 o'clock p.m. Lunch at Al Fresco's upstairs. 2 draft beers and a pizza. Just a working lunch, I'd tell the waiter. 4 o'clock p.m. The afternoon slump. The bottle gets hit harder. The buzz kicks in. This was the sweet spot. The golden hour. When I was slightly drunk, I was brilliant. I was charismatic. I was funny. I could diagram complex sentence structures on the whiteboard with a flourish. I could make the teenagers laugh. I could charm the mothers. Mr. David is so passionate, Ms. Holloway told me during my performance review. The students adore him. He has such energy. I love the job, I said, my breath smelling of mints and ethanol. But the function is a curve, and alcohol is a straight line. Eventually, they intersect. I wasn't living in Hanoi. I was living in the bunker. I rarely left Times City. I didn't go to the old quarter. I didn't go to Tay Ho. I didn't want to see the streets where Sarah and I had walked. I didn't want to see the lake. I stayed underground. I became a creature of artificial light. My skin turned pale, pasty. I gained weight. The vodka bloat. My face looked puffy in the mirror, my eyes glassy. But I had the suit. The suit was the armor. As long as I wore the suit, I was respectable. I checked Sarah's Instagram once a week, usually on Friday nights when I was alone in the apartment, drinking straight from the bottle. She was in Bali. Then she was in Thailand. Then back in Da Nang. There were photos of her and Duyan. He was wearing better clothes now. He had a new watch. He looked confident. She looked happy. Not the manic, frantic happiness of our arrival, but a calm, settled happiness. Caption, found my peace. I would stare at the screen until the pixels blurred. I would drink until the rage turned into a dull, heavy stone in my gut. Then, I would pass out. The cracks started to show in November. I started missing the 8 a.m. classes. Traffic, I lied. Alarm didn't go off. I started smelling. Not just of alcohol, but of something sweeter, sickly. The smell of a body trying to metabolize poison. I bathed in cologne, Davidoff cool water. It mixed with the vodka sweat to create a scent that was uniquely disturbing. And the sickly sweet, sticky shits. My God. Ms. Holloway stopped praising my energy. She started watching me. Are you okay, David? She asked one morning, catching me staring at the water cooler with a look of longing. You look tired. Insomnia, I said. The air conditioning. It dries me out. Drink more water, she advised. I do, I said, patting my bottle. Gallons of it. The end came on a Tuesday. It's always a Tuesday. I was scheduled to lead the VIP seminar. This was a quarterly event where the center showcased its top talent to prospective parents, the generals, the CEOs, the party officials. It was a sales pitch disguised as an academic presentation. I was the star attraction, the American scientist, the senior teacher. I was nervous. The anxiety was a physical thing, a claw gripping my throat. I started drinking at 6 a.m. By 9 a.m., the Aquafina bottle was half empty. By 1 p.m., I had refilled it. The seminar was at 2 p.m. I walked into the conference room. It was the largest room in the center, with tiered seating and a stage. The chandelier sparkled. The parents sat in rows, expectant, holding brochures. Ms. Holloway was at the side of the stage, nodding encouragingly. I walked up the steps to the podium. I felt loose. I felt great. The floor felt a little spongy, like I was walking on a mattress, but I compensated. Welcome, I boomed. My voice echoed. Welcome to the future of your children. I saw the parents nodding. Good start. I reached for my water bottle on the podium. I needed a sip. My mouth was dry. I unscrewed the cap. I lifted it. I took a long, deep swig. And then, gravity shifted. It wasn't a trip. It wasn't a stumble. It was a complete blackout of motor function. My legs simply resigned. They stopped receiving signals from the command center. I tipped sideways. I tried to catch myself on the podium. I missed. I crashed to the floor. Thud. The sound was sickeningly loud in the acoustic perfection of the room. The water bottle flew from my hand. It spun across the polished wooden stage, glug, glug, glugging its contents out as it went. It didn't smell like water. The smell of cheap vodka hit the front row like a chemical weapon. It was undeniable. It was aggressive. It was the smell of a gutter in a palace. Silence. Absolute, horrified silence. I lay on my back, looking up at the crystal chandelier. It was spinning slowly. I saw Ms. Holloway's face appear above me. She wasn't angry. She wasn't worried. She looked disgusted, as if she had found a cockroach in her salad. "Get up," she whispered. I tried. I couldn't. The floor was too comfortable. "Mr. Williams," she said, her voice icy loud. "Security?" 2 men in black suits appeared. They lifted me up. They dragged me off the stage. I looked back at the audience. The generals were frowning. The mothers were covering their children's eyes. "Class dismissed," I mumbled. They didn't let me go back to my desk. They didn't let me get my bag. They escorted me out of the glass doors, through the mall, past the luxury shops, and up the escalator. They dumped me on the sidewalk outside the Vencom Mega Mall Tower. The old head guard saying something in Vietnamese. I didn't understand what it meant, but understood the mood. Fuck off. I stood there. The sun was setting. The smog was thick. The noise of the city, the real city, rushed back in. I was wearing a suit that cost $200. I was wearing one shoe, the other had fallen off on the stage. I had lost the wife. I had lost the brewery. And now, I had lost the good job. I stripped off my tie. I threw it into the gutter, realized my error and picked it back up. Now stained. I walked. One shoe on, one shoe off. Click thud. Click thud. I walked to the nearest Circle K. I bought a double handful of Bia 333 cans. I sat on the curb under the shadow of the white towers I used to live in. I cracked a can. Psh! I drank it. It tasted like metal and failure. This was the bottom. I had no income. I had no career. I had no home. The rent at Time City was due in 3 days and I didn't have it. I pulled out my phone. I scrolled past Sarah's number, blocked. I scrolled past Ms. Holloway, blocked. I found a number I hadn't called in 3 months. Min, BT Brewery. I dialed. It rang and rang. "Allo!" His voice was loud, surrounded by the sound of grinding metal. "Min," I said. My voice was thick. "It's David." "Uncle David?" He sounded surprised. "You are teacher now, rich man." "I'm not a teacher anymore, Min," I said, looking at my bare foot on the dirty pavement. "I'm just a guy who needs to brew. You okay?" "No," I said. "I'm not okay. I need a place to sleep. And I need a job. Any job. I'll clean the tanks. I'll carry the malt. I don't care." There was a pause. "You come to brewery," Min said. "Gate is locked. Bank own it now. But I have key. Side door." "I'm coming," I said. "And David?" "Yeah? Bring beer. We thirsty." I hung up. I finished the can. I stood up. I hailed a grab bike. "Industrial zone," I said. The driver looked at my suit. He looked at my missing shoe. "You party?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Party over." We drove into the smog.